Hello, this is JOMAJ Studios and this is our original fantasy action adventure, The Fall of Nale. Episode 17. Late that evening, Lilith rushed home from the market in an effort to get home and ensure a cooked meal greeted her husband and his students as they walked through the front door. Lilith made her way into the home her husband built, only to find the boys had returned. "What happened?" asked Lilith, instantly feeling an air of despair in the room. Prince Nathaniel sat in the living room area and quietly wept uncontrollably, while Lance stared out of the window in a cold silence. "Do you remember the tale Father told us about the sorceress that turned him into stone?" asked Luke as he sat calmly by the dining table. "Yes, I remember," replied Lilith, at this point feeling very uneasy. "Well, today we saw her kill him," informed Luke, unable to look his mother in the eye. "Are you sure it was her?" asked Lilith, trying so hard to hold back her tears. "Dad's enchanted clothing didn't protect him," said Luke. Luke, seeing his mother's grief about to overwhelm her, quickly got up and dampened it with a hug. After being held in her son's arms for over a minute, Lilith pulled away in an effort to get herself together. It was then that she noticed Lance holding his father's sword. "Lance, I'm so sorry," said Lilith. Seeing the enchanted sword made it very clear to Lilith that she had not only lost her husband, but she had also lost a dear friend. Lilith hugged Lance, and this caused him to break down into tears. Lilith now knew the young warrior, like her, was dealing with the loss of two loved ones. "We need to know how to beat her," said Luke, refusing to join in with the mourning. Lilith, understanding her son's need to be strong, gave him the directions to Elzador's workshop. After a day of traveling, the boys found the wizard's workshop, which was an old-looking cottage in the middle of a forest. "What happened here?" asked Lance as he and his friends entered the workshop, only to find it in a total mess. It was evident a serious battle had taken place here. "Do you think she got him too?" asked the young prince. Lance and Luke gave him no answer, for they didn't even want to consider the possibility that the only person with the knowledge to defeat Elos was no more. "Yikes!" yelled out Lance as he jumped back into his comrades, missing a fired bolt of electricity by an inch. The boys turned to find the person responsible for the attack was a weakened Elzador lying on the floor. "Elzador," said Luke as he and his friends rushed to the wizard and helped him up in a sitting position. "You must be Jacob's boys," said Elzador, recognizing their uniforms. "What happened here?" asked Lance. "Elos," answered Elzador, then coughing uncontrollably. "Is there a way to beat her?" quickly asked Luke, sensing the old wizard didn't have much time. You must go to the far east and seek," said Elzador, then coughing again. "Seek what?" asked Luke, hiding his frustration. "Seek out a man by the name of Zeong," said Elzador with his last breath. The boys then watched helplessly as the old wizard passed away. Elzador's body then dispersed into stars and crossed over into the spirit world. "The Far East. I have family there," announced Luke, reinstalling hope into his comrades and himself. 2 days later, the boys got jobs as deck cleaners on a cargo ship heading towards the Far East. During the 2 weeks of their journey, Luke mourned his father's death in private. A month of traveling passed before the boys fully went back to their individual personalities. Finally, after 6 weeks of traveling, they arrived in the Far East, also known as Ancient China. Half an hour after their arrival, the students of Jacob roamed the market area, wearing black hooded cloaks. "Now that we're here, I think it's best I do the talking," pointed out Luke. "Why should you do all the talking?" asked Lance. "Because this is the home of my bloodline. I speak the language better than any of you, and if you look around in terms of looks, I blend in more," answered Luke. "First of all, I speak the language just as well as you do. Second of all, we're all wearing hoods, so it doesn't really matter what we look like. And third of all, bloodline or not, we would have a better chance of finding this monk if we all asked around," argued Lance. "Guys, can we please focus on the problem at hand?" said Prince Nathaniel. His comrades, as usual, ignored him. "Excuse me, can you tell me where I would be able to find a man called Zeong?" inquired the young prince, in the local language as he stopped a young man dressed in grey. "Sure, follow me. I'll take you right to him," said the stranger. The prince, grateful for the gesture, complied and followed the young man, leaving his comrades to continue their argument. "Hold on, where's Nat?" said Lance, noticing the young prince was no longer with them. Meanwhile, Prince Nathaniel was led into a dark alleyway. "Are you sure we're going the right way?" asked Prince Nathaniel, sensing that something was wrong. The stranger responded by unexpectedly kicking the prince hard in the face, so much so the teenager dropped to his knees. "Hand over your money, and I won't hurt you any further," requested the stranger. The prince looked the stranger in the eyes and smiled as he cleaned away some blood at the side of his lip. The stranger responded by throwing another kick at the prince. This time, young Nathaniel grabbed hold of the street criminal's leg and flung him against a wall. The robber recovered quickly and began to attack the young prince, who had by now got to his feet. The stranger displayed the fact that he wasn't just a common thief, but also a gifted fighter. However, the students of Jacob had far surpassed the level of gifted, and at their young ages were already several steps ahead of being a master. The young prince, still with a smile on his face, began to avoid the thief's attack with his hands behind his back. The thief tried everything from kicking to punching to tackling, but young Nathaniel's speed and ability to anticipate his opponent's movements was just too much for him. After seeing the frustration in his attacker's eyes, the young prince dislocated the stranger's left knee with a powerful low kick, causing the thief to fall to his right knee in pain. "Now would you take me to Zeong?" said the prince, pleased he had proved he was no pushover. However, the teenager's cockiness got the better of him, as the stranger threw some hot pepper into his eyes and began to limp out of the alleyway. "Where do you think you're going?" asked Lance as he and Luke intercepted the thief on his way out. The thief didn't even attempt to put up a fight, for he knew it would be hopeless. After washing the pepper out of the prince's eyes, the students of Jacob interrogated the thief. "Look, I don't know who Zeong is. I'm new here, but there's a woman I know who could help you," insisted the thief. "Take us to this woman," ordered Luke with a stern look on his face. "And don't try any funny business, or I'll make limping seem like a luxury to you," added Lance, giving the impression he was more than willing to beat the thief to a pulp. The now partially crippled crook led the boys deep into the market area to an old rundown-looking shack. "Quack, what happened to your leg? And who are these strangers you have brought with you?" asked an old woman as the crook led the boys in. "They are foreigners seeking a man called Zeong," answered Kwok, while the students of Jacob took off their hoods. "Jacob, Jacob, is that you?" said the old woman as she cited Luke. "I am Luke. Jacob is my father," replied the young warrior. My God, you are the spitting image of your father," said the old woman as she touched the young warrior's face. "How is it you know my father?" asked Luke. "How is it I know him? Young man, I brought him into this world." "Your teacher's mother?" asked Lance, surprised. "Teacher? I see my Jacob's come a long way since I saw him. How is he these days?" asked the old woman. An unsettling silence followed, until finally Luke spoke. "My father, your son, is dead." "I see," said the old woman, taking a seat. "He was an extraordinary man. In fact, in our land, he was a legend," informed Lance, trying to soften the blow of the news. "How did he die?" asked the old woman. "He died by the hand of an evil sorceress. That is why we're here to seek Zeong. We were told by a great wizard that he was the only man that could tell us how to destroy her," explained Luke. Luke's grandmother closed her eyes as she took in the news. "Quack!" cried out the old woman. "Yes, madam," answered the crook as he limped into the room. "Take these boys to the temple. The man they seek is the head priest there. As you wish, madam." Quack did what he was told and took the boys to the temple, which was a 45-minute horse ride from the market area. As Quack and the students of Jacob approached the temple, two hefty and bold monks stopped them. "State your business," demanded one of the monks. "I was told by Chun to take these men to see Zeong," said Quack. The monks glanced at the teenagers who had covered their faces with their hoods. "You may enter, but your horses stay here," said one of the monks. Quack and the boys complied with the instructions given and were led into the temple by the silent monk. "Aren't monks supposed to be friendly?" quietly asked Lance. "These are harsh times we live in. Even spiritual men have to be trained warriors," explained Quack. The four young men were then taken into a small study area, where an elderly man dressed in a Shaolin monk-like attire meditated. "Master Zeong, there are some people here that wish to speak to you," announced the monk, successfully gaining the attention of the old man. The old man, with the use of a hand gesture, asked the monk to leave the room. The old man then got to his feet and approached the young warriors. "Greetings, Master Zeong. We were sent. I know why you're here," said the old man, disallowing Luke to finish his sentence. The old man then walked around the students of Jacob and continued. The sorceress you wish to destroy is Elos, a fallen one like me, who chose to oppress the kind she once watched over. It took the combination of Elzador's mystic powers, Aiden's black magic, and the essence of nature, which I wield, to imprison her. Why didn't you destroy her? Asked Lance. At the time, none of us were strong enough. Even when we combined our powers, she still possessed a little more. We were lucky we only needed half the power attained to imprison her, said Zeong, then taking a seat. But that was a long time ago. Much has happened since then. Both Elzador and Aiden are no more, and Elos has taken the soul of Nemesis, making her practically invincible, pointed out Zeong. Master Zeong, is there any way we can stop her? Asked Luke, unable to give up hope. Maybe, responded Zeong. Maybe, said Lance, who was obviously dissatisfied by Zeong's answer. Now, Elos can only be destroyed by the hands of two mortals, said Zeong as he rose to his feet. How can two mortals do what three fallen ones could not? Asked the young prince. By surviving the gauntlet of the damned, to possess the Yo and Gong armors, explained Zeong. What are these armors? Asked Luke. They are tools, the fallen ones, first used to develop all mortal fighting styles. The Yo armor is said to give the wearer an understanding of all the soft elements of combat, at the same time increasing the wearer's speed and agility by 100 folds. The Gong armor is said to give the wearer the understanding of all the hard elements of combat, at the same time increasing the wearer's strength and endurance by 100 folds. The Yo armor can manipulate any force, while the Gong armor can resist any force, explained Zeong. Master Zeong, please take us to the gauntlet of the damned, asked Luke anxiously. Not until you prove yourselves, insisted Zeong. Prove ourselves? Said Lance, a bit confused. Yes, prove yourselves. I've seen the most gifted of warriors venture into the gauntlet and perish. If you are weak, entering the gauntlet is as good as suicide. Usually I'm able to sense the presence of a good warrior, but all I sense now is overconfidence, arrogance, and inexperience, stated Zeong. What do we have to do to prove ourselves worthy? Asked Luke, determined to venture into the gauntlet. Zeong responded to Luke's question with a simple smile. He then took the warriors to a large courtyard at the back of the temple, where about 50 monks, both young and old, sat around a large circular and sandy arena. In the middle of the arena, two monks, who were obviously very skilled, seemed to be engaging each other in no-holds-barred hand-to-hand combat. As Zeong's presence was made known, everyone in the courtyard, including the fighters, stopped what they were doing and paid their respects. Where is Hong? Inquired Zeong. I'm here, master, said a young man, dressed in an orange Shaolin monk-like uniform, as he emerged from out of the crowd. Despite the youth that radiated off him, his eyes were strong, like that of a soldier who had survived countless battles. Warm up, I have a challenge for you, instructed Zeong. Hong showed his intent to obey with a simple nod before making his way to the center of the ring. Who is he? Asked Lance. He is Hong, the head garrison of the temple and my most gifted pupil. He will now warm up with the two highly skilled warriors in the ring, explained Zeong. As Hong entered the ring, he paid his respects to the two monks that were to be his opponents. The monks in turn returned the gesture. A signal was given, and the two monks together began to attack Hong simultaneously, displaying an incredible level of skill, strength, and speed. Hong, also displaying an incredible level of speed and skill, began to artistically move around the ring, fending off all the attacks thrown his way. The monks attacked as hard and as viciously as they could, but they were unable to touch Hong, who seemed to be just toying with them. After 5 minutes of being on the defensive, Hong took to the air and kicked both monks twice in the chest before finally landing on his feet. As the force of his kicks threw both his opponents to the ground, Hong casually dusted off the sand that had splashed on his outfit. The beaten monks, having no problem acknowledging Hong's superiority as a fighter, got to their feet, paid their respects, and left the ring. Are you sure those guys were highly skilled fighters? Asked Lance, unimpressed by the performance of the monks. I take it you can do better, said Zeong. Actually, I can. Despite what you think, I'm one of the most gifted fighters ever to walk through your gates, bragged Lance humorously. And he's modest, added Luke sarcastically. Please, modesty is nothing more than a polite lie, said Lance, resenting Luke's remark. I'm glad you are feeling confident, because if I'm to be convinced that three of you are strong enough to take the challenge of the gauntlet, one of you has to defeat Hong, pointed out Zeong. I'll do it, volunteered Lance and Luke in unison. I want you to fight Hong, said Xiong, pointing to the young prince. I know as a warrior you are yet to reach the level of your comrades, which is why if you beat Hong, I will be convinced that there is a slim chance that you and your friends could survive the gauntlet, said Xiong as he approached Prince Nathaniel. Okay, I'll fight him, said the young prince, who was really just as confident as Luke and Lance. Nat, the fate of our kingdom is in your hands. Before you make any commitments in the fight, you have to learn his rhythm and show no fear, advanced Lance. But don't waste too much time on feeling his rhythm. After all, you've seen him move. Think fast and focus mainly on breaking his confidence by striking him out or taking him to the ground, advised Luke. Prince Nathaniel laughed to himself, for it seemed even when they were giving him advice, Lance and Luke were competing against one another. The young prince made his way to the center of the ring, where he and Hong paid respects to one another. Xiong then gave a signal and the fight began. Hong, assuming the young prince was a worthy opponent, wasted no time on unleashing a merciless attack. Prince Nathaniel, remembering Lance's advice, stayed on the defensive. He, however, overdid it, enabling Hong to set him up for a powerful scissors kick that flung him several feet into the air before finally hitting the ground. As soon as the young warrior's back touched the ground, he flipped up to his feet. Now utilizing Luke's advice, Prince Nathaniel decided to go on the offensive, displaying a wide variety of punches and kicks. Again, he overdid it, allowing his experienced opponent to manipulate the force of one of his attacks and use it against him. As the young prince hit the floor for the second time, he remembered a piece of advice given to him by his late teacher. Finding your center sometimes means finding what works for you. If you try to imitate others or restrict yourself to one style, you cannot do this. Now stricken with a fresh strategy, the young prince spun to his feet. Hong, now sure he would have no problem defeating his opponent, moved in to finish off Prince Nathaniel with a series of powerful attacks. The student of Jacob greeted the student of Xiong with a fighting style that was 40% hands and 60% legs, with a persona that was cocky, methodical, artistic, and ruthless. Now focused on making good use of all his opportunities, the prince began to lay in some hits on Hong. Hong, not used to being on the receiving end of a fight, began to let his anger and frustration get the better of him. Prince Nathaniel, playing on his opponent's emotions, began to hit him again and again and again, until finally he was able to knock Hong out with a drop kick to the face. After which he landed on his feet and struck a pose. Now that's more like it, yelled out Lance. Well done, said Luke as the prince rejoined them. So, Master Xiong, will you take us to the gauntlet? Asked Lance with a smirk on his face. Follow me, responded Xiong, then leading the young warriors back into the temple. That is the end of episode 17, but before you go, answer this episode's question. As Christians, should we have confidence in our abilities? Refer to the Bible and leave your answer via any of JOMAJ Studios' social media platforms, which can be found at jomajstudios.com. Like Water, The Next Age is now available on paperback and in ebook format via any Kindle device. Also, check out the JOMAJ Studio website, Twitter page, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channel for the complete Like Water series and all other JOMAJ Studio features.